This is the Riverdale of anime adaptations. Hey, it's Ali, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and it is spooky season, and as the One Piece live action has become such a grand old thing, I love that, I love that show. I have decided to maybe go back and give some other things a chance, especially given how the One Piece live action really excels at, I think, gathering new audiences. So I'm like, maybe that's what these other anime adaptations were trying to do, and I, as a diehard anime fan of those specific animes, maybe I'm just looking at it from the wrong lens. So I decided to rewatch the live action Death Note from a fresh standpoint to see if it really even works on its own as a movie and getting people into the franchise. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe because I make videos like this all the time, and comment down below if there are any other movies or TV shows that you want me to watch, and let's jump into it. So I'm going to take you through this movie, but please understand I had to stop every 5 seconds because something so unserious happens. So what was a 1 hour 40-minute movie turned into like a 3-hour excursion, because not only was I writing notes, I was also like laughing my ass off at some of the absurdity of these things. Also, it was like 1 a.m. so bear that in mind. So the reason why I call this such a like Riverdale of like anime adaptations is because literally the opening shot, we get a nice opening shot of Seattle, we get, you know, crime, and then it's juxtaposed with like cheerleading and high school shenanigans and stuff, and it's just like, oh, I'm supposed to put these on the same level. I'm supposed to put city crime on the same level as the epic highs and lows of high school football. In such a gritty world where homework is passed on like drugs and girls are smoking at cheerleading practice. No, wait, actually, why is she smoking at cheerleading practice? I used to do cheerleading and it's already super competitive. So if you don't want to be there, you know, she's the whole manic pixie dream girl, which we won't get into. But if you don't want to be there at cheerleading practice, don't cheerlead. Like, I think they were trying to pull this whole thing that she was forced into this world of popularity and jocks and cheerleaders and blah blah blah, but you don't have to be there. Cheerleading is already super uber competitive. Girl, you're smoking while at practice? Like, who is allowing this? It's just a random thing to be like. The thing about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which I won't get too deep into like the actual narrative of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but the thing about it is it's these girls that perform femininity and like traditional femininity at that, while simultaneously believing that they are too far above it. They have a quirk about them, usually their hair or the way that they act or smoking cigarettes or something like that, that makes them seem so above it all and so out of everybody's league, but they're still maintaining that traditional femininity. They are still wrapped around the guy's finger or the other way around, vice versa, which that's basically this movie, but like they still perform that traditional femininity. Like there's no reason for her to be on the cheerleading team. Even her being popular and being a popular person is so like unnecessary. And maybe they were trying to harken back to the original character Misa, who I am like channeling here today, but like we'll get into when I get into a rant about her. I just need you to hold that in your mind. She is supposed to be the Manic Pixie Dream Girl Misa I, who's named Mia in this. And that really gets me into asking myself, who is this movie for? Is it for the diehard fans? Is it for a new, younger audience to watch this and get into? Like, I was very concerned about the tone and like the who is this for throughout the entire movie. Like I felt like I was simultaneously, like I said, watching an episode of Riverdale while also a like gritty 4D chess crime like thing, and it tries to be both of those at the same time and it just does not work. And I don't know where we got the teen drama aspect from. I guess to like try and appeal to like Western audiences, we needed that crime teen drama thing, but it's like so the original character of Light Yagami, and I think this is actually a very important point of his character, is that he's super privileged. He's literally like a child genius. He has a like upper middle class family. He like is acing. He's at the top of all of his classes. He's going to get into a good college. He's helping his dad out with cases, which I don't know if that's legal. But he's helped his father out with a bunch of different like court cases and criminal cases and stuff like that. His dad's an investigator, and he just has his whole life ahead of him. Like everybody likes him. He's super popular. Like he's kind of, I guess, quote unquote bored with life. And ryuk, the demon in this case, Shinigami, is also bored with his life and humanity and whatever. So Ryuk just drops the death note for like anybody to find, and the fact that Light found it and he feels like he's this chosen one, he quickly becomes a sociopath. So if you don't know, Death Note is a book where you write people's names, full first and last name, and then they die. Light, Yagami, gets this book, and with no explanation, like Ryuk does not come to him and explain to him how everything works. Like he does not explain any of this to him in the anime, contrary to the movie where Ryuk explains this to him and then actually eggs Light on in this, which is like I have a lot of issues with, because in the original, Light gets the book and with no prompt from him, he tests it out and it works, and then he decides to start systematically over the course of 5 days before he ever meets Ryuk and gets confirmation that this is indeed like a otherworldly thing. He just systematically starts writing criminals' names in it. From the very beginning, you are made to believe that Light is a sociopath, a psychopath. I don't know, all the terms. You are made to believe that. In this case, in this movie, what bothers me a lot is they take Light as a character, and by the end of the movie, you're almost supposed to feel sorry for him. Like he had some just cause, actually, but he went about it the wrong way, and that's really what the problem was. Ryuk in this movie is played by Willem Dafoe. Light is played by Nat Wolff. Shout out to those people. They're all great actors. The acting in this movie was actually pretty good. At no point did I think like anybody was acting outside of their character or in a bad way or anything like that. It's just the characters that they had to act as was the issue. And the big difference in this movie that like kills me about Light's character is that he is egged on by everybody. He is pushed into these situations. He's pushed to kill, and like while he does still have that mentality of like I am a god, like I am helping out the little guy in this case. In Light's case in this movie, he feels like he is, you know, the underdog helping out the little guy. He knows how it feels. His mom was killed by this like random drug lord mafia boss person, and he got away scot-free because the father of this mafia boss has a lot of ties and he has a lot of money, so he was able to get the dude out of jail scot-free. And he hates his father for just standing there and allowing it because his father is a cop. And it's like, I don't know what you wanted your dad to do. I know he's a kid, so it's like, yeah, but you're a cop. You should have been able to do something. And he's like realizing not all cops are good. What am I gonna do? Like, you know, he's going through that mental state. So when he gets the death note, you know, he still has that mentality of I can be the god of this world. I can help people. I can push people to stop doing crime. We'll just eliminate crime. Like that is like his main goal. And it's different from Light's in the fact that like Light has everything. Like he literally has everything, and that having everything and never having to struggle at anything is what makes him feel like he can play God. Where in this case, it is him, Light in the movie, feeling like he has nothing and he is constantly pushed down by society and by the world, and this is his one way to not only enact revenge but make a better place for people like him who have had to go through the things that he has gone through, which is not a horrible premise. It's not a horrible premise to change it up. Like I said, I think that the original Light, like having him have that privilege is what makes him have this audacity in the first place to believe that he is God and that he could do all this stuff in the first place. But in this movie, if you were to take everything else out and just work with that concept and that premise of like him rooting for the little guy, it's fine, except for the fact that it then makes him a sympathetic villain, which wouldn't be bad because we all love a good sympathetic villain if it didn't end the way that it did. So let's continue on. After Ryuk eggs Light on to killing somebody in a Final Destination style that was so comical, I don't know what I would have preferred, because there was just like a lot of exploding blood and guts, and I was just like, I don't like why. It's not like there wasn't gore in Death Note, but this was just really like very Final Destination. Like very Final Destination. And I don't know, it made me laugh every time a person died. Also, Light has this like Redditor vibe to him. It gets abandoned pretty early on in the movie, which I'm glad, because he then becomes a pathetic mess when he meets Mia, or he already knows who Mia is. He has like this crush on her, this unsaid crush on her, and she is also like watching him for like some reason. Like, why would she? This is the thing about Manic Pixie Dream Girls, is they're supposed to be so far out of the main character's league that you have to ask yourself, okay, but then why would she be interested in you? You know, like, why would she be interested in you if she's supposed to be running in completely different social circles? Like, he's a pathetic man in this movie. There's like, or boy rather, he's a teenager. He's a pathetic boy in this movie. Like, there's no reason for him to like have caught her eye like at all. And it's like only until she for some reason randomly sits beside him during gym and is like, oh, did you hear about that bully who died? He died in a really crazy way. And then he's all like, yeah, I was there, I saw it. And she's like, oh, how did you know? Or like some shit like that. And then he takes her and he's like, you really want to know? And he just takes her and then shows her like everything and shows her how it works. And she immediately is enamored by him and is like, oh my god, that's like actually so sexy. That's like so hot. And then she immediately falls in love with him and they make out while they kill criminals. Like, I don't know why this like Bonnie and Clyde thing needed to happen. So let me explain to you who Misa I is. Misa I is like the most iconic character in my opinion in Death Note. She is the most iconic, okay? What happens is that Light, in his killing spree that he's going on, ends up killing Misa I, who is this idol, kills her like creepy, abusive, I think manager or some type of abuser in her life. Light ends up killing this man, unbeknownst to him that this was even a person's problem or whatever. She also comes into contact with a Death Note with a different Shinigami named Rem. Shout out Rem. She lesbian. Shout out to her. She figures out that Light is Kira, the like pseudonym that he's been going under, and she's just like, I am devoted to you now. Like, I am in love with you. I will literally do anything that you ask me to do. I love you. And so she pretty much becomes this second Kira and is getting manipulated by Light. And it's often talked about like whether or not she knew she was getting manipulated. I'd like to err on yes. Like, she was just so devoted to this man that she knew that she was being manipulated. And even though like he never really felt the same way because he literally physically couldn't feel this, like there was no emotions there for him to feel the same way about her, she was still like, I am in love with this man and he's my soulmate and I'm gonna stick beside him. That's my man and I'm gonna stick beside him. And the craziest part out of all of it, spoiler alert, is that she outlives everybody even after like going through all the shit that she went through and like, you know, seemingly like the ditzy one or the one that like is just being used and abused. That was literally like a surface level of what Misa is. So to change her into a manic pixie dream girl, I understand maybe not wanting her to be this like from one abuser to the next type of person, but it's like, I feel like there was a way we could have gone about it. Like, if you plot twist for this movie, she turns out to be manipulating Light this entire time and says that I love you, and if you really loved me, you'd do this thing for me. And he's head over heels for this girl, pathetic ass man, which, don't get me wrong, I love a pathetic ass character. I love a pathetic ass man that is head over heels for the girl. I love that. However, in this case, it's just one of those things where it's like, maybe because it's like obviously like manipulation, and very obviously like he at no point in time throughout everything that happens does he ever think it's her until the very end. And the movie tries to play it off as like this gotcha, like, oh, you didn't think it was her, but it's like, so obviously it was her manipulating him the entire time. Even when I was like 17 watching this movie for the first time, I was like, oh, like she's the bad guy, which like if we wanted to do that, if we wanted to make Misa into this person who actually was really smart and clever and conniving and like whatever, and transfer that to the movie, I feel like we still could have made her like this person who was like so devoted and in love with Light. And I feel like that actually would have fit better than like this, because like Light would have felt like, oh, I'm taking advantage of her, like I'm manipulating her, blah blah blah, but in reality she was like 4D chess ahead. That's the thing about Death Note, it's all about the 4D chess moves and the mind games, and this just lacked that like completely. They go on this like romantic sex killing montage where they're kissing each other, killing people, having sex, killing people, etc etc etc. It gets put on the news and they're like, oh my god. And then the whole cult of Kira, which was something that was like so interesting in the show, where people start believing in Kira and being like, oh, this is a new god, he is the one who is like doing all of this and we should be worshiping him and like being better about it and blah blah blah. There's a point in the movie where and this happens in the show too, there's like this forum blog that starts where people are putting criminals and other people's names on this blog for Kira to kill, and it's like supposed to be this free repository for Kira to get free names to kill. But the whole issue with it is like there's no way to like, I mean, there is a way to fact check, but it's like really hard to fact check and make sure this person is an actual criminal and not just some random person who fucked you over. Literally, there's a point in the movie, and he's just Light's just like, well, we don't know that. We don't know if they're a bad guy. What if it's just some guy who some other guy fucked his girl and he's just mad about it, so he puts his name on here. And then Mia goes, wouldn't you be mad if a guy fucked me? And he's like, oh yeah, I'd kill him. I was like, I was just like, oh my god, please. Also forgot to say, but ryuk is like the best part of this movie. Like, that's where all the budget went. All of the budget went to ryuk in this movie. He looked great. He looked absolutely great, and obviously Willem Dafoe did a great job of voicing ryuk. Like, if we ever want to try again, get Willem Dafoe on the phone again. Like I had no problems with the way ryuk acted in this, other than like his whole thing about like I guess this would be considered a plot hole, but ryuk's whole reason for like giving Light the death note, like he gave Light the death note, like he did drop it onto the earth, but he did it specifically for Light to pick it up. And he constantly tries to tell Light throughout the movie, like, oh, if you don't want it, you can just give it away. It doesn't look like you're up to this anyway, blah 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 blah. And it's like, that's just like not ryuk's style. Like, the whole point of like ryuk dropping the death note was that he was bored. And in this one, they try to make it off like ryuk has some like master plan or like whatever. And it's like, no, ryuk was just bored. He's literally like, the thing I love about like cosmic horror and like demons that are so far removed from humanity, like gods and demons that are removed from humanity and are like revered almost, is because they're removed from humanity. They have no reason to care about humanity or its ways and the right and wrongs and all that type of stuff. And so seeing humans do shit like this is what makes to ryuk makes it interesting. And that's why I love like cosmic horror and stuff like that, because it is so removed from humanity and you get to look at it like the whole thing about like aliens. If aliens come to earth, who says they're gonna care that we have certain customs and rules and this and that to abide by? Like, who says they're gonna care? Because they're not from here. Like, anyway. Don't need to be talking about aliens right now, but like to give ryuk such a human like answer, and not even really give it, because I still don't know what his reasoning was for even giving a human the death note in the first place. He didn't say like, oh, because it would be fun or it would be interesting or whatever. He's just like, oh, if you're not up to the task, it doesn't look like you're up to the task. And he's like trying to egg him on like he has some ulterior motive, to the point where the B plot then becomes that we're trying, like, Light is so suspicious of ryuk and thinks that ryuk is trying to like do this and like all this stuff, and realizes that what he's doing is bad and he's actually trying to stop ryuk now. And that's supposed to be the twist, right? You're supposed to be like, oh, ryuk is actually the bad guy, and then the plot twist is supposed to be that Mia was actually the bad guy. And it's like like, what? At no point does any of that make sense. Like, it just doesn't. And I feel like as a new person coming into this, you're not supposed to see these shinigami as like, oh, they're pulling the puppets, pulling the strings and blah 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 blah. It is like really interesting when Light gets a one-over on Rem and forces her hand to do something like really prominent in the show. It's a really big deal, but not because Rem or ryuk were like pulling the strings and they have some grandmaster plan. No, not at all. It's actually really crazy because they're gods. They're literal gods, and Light was able to manipulate them, which makes them not seem as powerful as maybe they once were, which is like the whole point of him being able to manipulate Rem like that. So in this movie, trying to be all like, ryuk is actually this crazy demon. Like, the way they show him in this movie, the way they like, it's like a horror movie whenever he shows up, which is like, it looks cool, it looks really cool, but I feel like kind of defeats the purpose. Like, we're supposed to be scared of ryuk, but in the show we're like, that's my buddy ryuk, like, that's ryuk. You know, haha, that's ryuk. Like, he's like largely a comical character, which is hilarious considering that he is like a demon god thing. Oh, something that I felt really interesting about Light and Misa's relationship throughout this is that the point where their roles were cemented in this relationship and it becomes very obvious that she's like manipulating him is actually the first time that they kiss. He's like about to kiss her, and then he goes, oh wait, like, can I kiss you? Like, asking for consent. And she's like, you're not supposed to ask. And it's supposed to be like this sexy hot moment. It's like, oh, Light doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And in this universe, it's supposed to be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's way in over his head and he will be taken advantage of. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happens by the end of the movie. So of course, now we gotta talk about L. L in the movie is like the greatest detective, the world's greatest detective. And he comes in and he immediately suspects Light of being Kira, but he has no way to prove it yet. And he has basically the whole show is literally just Light and L going back and forth, sometimes homoerotically, trying to figure out how to one up each other and how to get each other out, basically. So I will say the actor who plays L in this movie is so good. He is so good at it. He is so good at it. And like, as a person like coming back and looking at it now, I think back in the day when I first watched this and everybody was so adverse to like live action adaptations, I was like, no, everybody's so wrong. Everybody's so wrong. But I think honestly, the actors like did a good job with what they did. So Elle specifically, I think, was very well characterized. There were, except for the end, again, the ending of this movie. Oh, this ending of this movie really gets me. But specifically at the end of this movie is when I like, okay, that's not your fault that the character was written this way, but Elle should not have been written that way. Anyway, so we meet Elle, who is this like world famous detective, and he immediately for some reason wants to work with Light's dad, which like is never really explained why. They're just like, oh, you're the only one who doesn't believe like that Kira is good and is just because Kira's helping the cops. Literally Batman moment. Kira's helping the cops, so like why would we care? Why would we care what Kira's doing? Like he's helping us out and like whatever. And his dad is the only one that goes like, okay, but he can't just get to decide who lives and who dies. And also, what if I get on Kira's bad side? Bars. What if I get on Kira's bad side? Am I suddenly going to die that way? Which is something that comes up both in the show and in the movie, which is a really interesting point and the reason why a human being shouldn't be made to play God, right? So that's why Elle chooses him. And then like it was really hard for me to follow any of Elle's logic in this movie as opposed to the show. Like even if I had to go back and rewatch it a couple times, I eventually understood the logic of where people were coming from. But it feels like you had to fill in a lot of the blanks as a person watching this movie. There's a lot of blanks, and if I've never seen the show before, I'm not going to understand a lot of these blanks, which is why I feel like this movie didn't work overall. It's like, yes, okay, there's always going to be anime heads out there who are going to be like, live action sucks no matter what, blah blah blah, but the whole point of this really is to get a whole new audience into this franchise. But if it doesn't even work as a regular like crime movie drama thing, if I like, the whole point of like a good mystery and a good crime thing is for me, the audience, to feel like I could have figured it out on my own, or I did figure it out on my own, or whatever, to be like, oh my god, that's like so clever, or like whatever. And I got none of that in this movie. There was no like aha moments, except for the end. I know I keep talking about the mysterious end of this movie, but except for the end of the movie, there's no part that I'm just like, I guess that was clever. I don't know. Like Elle figuring out that Kira needs a face and a name is like, the way he does it in the show is different than like in the movie, which is fine, but it's like, it's really just kind of like, I guess it's fine, whatever. But I really do like Watari and Elle's relationship, both in the show and in this movie. So my problem with Elle and Watari's relationship in this movie isn't the fact that it is very more heavily father-son, because that's what I like. That's what I liked about Elle and Watari's relationship in the first place, is that it's supposed to be surrogate father, surrogate son, all that type of shit. Like it makes sense. However, in the show you get all this backstory, and this is where this might have been better as a show, as like a live action TV show, like the way One Piece is being handled, is because you get all this backstory that is built up over time, and then you get to the backstory about the orphanage and Xavier's home for the gifted detectives or some shit, and it makes sense, and it like how the whole backstory is there, and it seems like that part of the movie is just an Easter egg for people who like have seen the show, because they don't really explain, like they explain because Watari does an exposition dump, but when you get to the orphanage, all of the rooms don't mean anything, and even if you've watched the show, those rooms still don't really mean anything. You just hear creepy laughter like he's in some type of creepy funhouse, and you're supposed to be like, oh, something bad happened here, but you don't know what, because you never watched the show, and you have no interest in learning what, because this isn't a TV show, it's a movie, so they're supposed to explain what this is, and they never do. And Elle being like really caught up over the, spoiler alert, death of Watari, again, would have made sense, but it goes a little bit too far. Like he's a little bit too like lost in the sauce when Watari dies. Like Watari was his only lifeline, and now that he's gone, he's just like going insane, because that's literally what happens. Is like Elle pretty much loses himself. He breaks all types of code of conduct and all of this other type of stuff. And while yes, Elle in the show, like, you know, it exists outside of the main rules of like cops and investigators and blah 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 blah, he never once really loses his cool. But when he does, and the rare chances that it happens, it means something. It's supposed to be super like serious, like, oh shit, like Elle just lost his shit, like just now he got super angry just now, like oh my god, like okay, he was taken back, he was surprised, because he has this monotone like super calculating voice, and also his head is like, he's super calculating of every possibility that something might happen. So at this end of the movie, when Elle decides to take a gun, even though throughout the whole movie he's like, well, I don't use guns, they're inefficient or distracting or like whatever, and then he decides he has a briefcase that has a gun in it, like a super special high-tech gun. Another thing about this movie, there's like random high tech in this. Like at the beginning of the movie when you first meet L, like he puts on these like sleep glasses and they're never explained like what they are or what they do, and they never really show up again. But there's supposed to be like this big fancy tech that they might have, but at no point is it like, oh, they're supposed to be super high tech and this is like cyberpunk and blah 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 blah. So at the end of the movie, when L pulls out like a cyberpunk looking gun, you're like, is that a gun? It looks like a flare gun, not like a real gun. Like whatever. He has the gun, and you're like, and he's also like chasing this man on foot. Now L is like got that sleeper build in him. Okay, like he can do this stuff, but like he's calculating in those moments. And then when he gets to the point where he's about to shoot Light, there's a civilian that comes out of like the alleyway and is like, what's going on here? And he's like, don't move. I'm an investigator. I'm L and I'm trying to catch Kira. This is Kira, blah, blah, blah. And he gets knocked out with a piece of wood because the dude is a Kira follower. And like, even that just seems so out of character, even in the movie. Because I, of course, watching the show, I'm like, this is so wildly out of character for him. But even in the basis of the movie and the stuff that you set up about this character, he would never do that because you set him up to calculate every calculation under the sun, which is how he even got to a Light being Kira in the first place. You've already set that up, but now you're like, actually, he's gonna do this super rash thing that's actually gonna hinder him. And then at the end of the movie, when okay, wait, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to Bonnie and Clyde. So at this point, the FBI is on the case for them and they're trying to figure them out, and they've been following them around and stuff like that. So they're like, we gotta lay low, we gotta stop, we gotta do whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so Mia is like, well, why don't we just kill the investigators? And Light is like, we can't kill innocent people. Remember, we're only in this to kill the criminals or whatever. And she's just like, well, we should just be killing anybody who gets in our way. And he's like, no. And so they have this back and forth, whatever. She's upset about it. He goes, well, good thing it's my book. This will come back around later. Duh. And so they're just chilling on the couch, I guess, watching the news or like whatever about like how the investigations are going great because killings have stopped or whatever. She then storms upstairs. Can you guess what happens next? Mysteriously, the next day, a bunch of FBI agents die. And do you think Light, accuses her of having done this? Or does he accuse the demon? He accuses the demon, and he even goes to Mia and is like, oh my god, Mia, ryuk, he killed all those people, blah, 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 like, he's the bad guy, we can't trust him, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, whoa, slow down. Also, she can't even see ryuk, so like, whatever, but like, she's like, whoa, well, maybe this is a good thing, maybe this is for the best, and blah, blah, blah. And at no point during that does Light suspect that she may have been the one to do it. And this happens like again a second time, and the only way that even after she threatens to kill his own dad because his dad gets on TV and is like, we're gonna catch Kira, he is a loser, we're gonna catch him, blah 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 blah, and she gets all upset and she's like, you know what, and then grabs the death note and tries to kill his dad. Even after that, he is still like, oh, she didn't do it. And it is only until at their little prom or as a homecoming or like whatever that he's just like, oh my god, you did it, didn't you? And you wrote my name in the death note so that like whatever, like I would die if I didn't give you the death note or whatever. And she's just like, yeah, but I love you, baby, and I don't want you to die, but give me the fucking book or like whatever. And it could have been an interesting plot twist had they not had this whole stupid ass Bonnie and Clyde manic pixie dream girl, whatever. She had anything other than a piece of paper to her, it would have made sense. If she had any type of motive even to why she would want this book, and like if she had gone through something back in the day or some type of traumatizing event that made her like see Light in this god like way, and then she figures out that he's actually just this pathetic man and actually she needs to be the one to take over, that would make sense. But you did not give her enough character development for any of that to make sense, and it frustrates me so much. Because Misa is iconic, and how are you going to do this to her? Also, another thing that is like a CinemaSins nitpick, these two random buff security guard FBI agents somehow make it into a homecoming dance. These grown men somehow make it into a homecoming dance. And also, they're supposed to be watching Bonnie and Clyde the whole time, and they lose them. Why are you so bad at your job? Oh, I keep like skipping around and bouncing around, but basically they try to get all this dirt on who L is, like his actual real name, by getting Watari to go to the orphanage, like I said earlier, and if he doesn't come back in time with L's name, he'll like die because they wrote his name in the death note. But apparently if you rip out the pages and burn it, then he won't die, which is not a thing that exists. It's not a thing. That's not a thing. Once you write their name down in there, it's over. Except in the pilot manga, I think there was a death eraser where you could erase it and bring somebody back to life, which I thought would be really interesting, because I feel like we could have had this whole thing where Light could have framed himself. Like, he could have killed himself in the Death Note. Well, you're not supposed to write your own name in the Death Note, but pretend that doesn't exist. Pretend that rule doesn't exist. You could write his own name in the Death Note, die, and then come back to life, or have Misa do it. Come back to life, and then be like, wow, that was crazy. I got Kira. I was hunted by Kira because I'm helping you guys with the investigation. Shouldn't I, like, now not be under scrutiny? But, like, you know, I can see how that would cause a lot of problems. But, like, that would have been really interesting. And also the fact that, like, Light writes all of the names in pen. Babe, he does not care. Even if there was, or even if he knew that there was an eraser, he would not fucking care. But anyway, back to this movie. So yeah, Light is trying to do the right thing and not have Watari killed in the end. But Mia decides that, like, no, I'm gonna kill him anyway, and I wrote your name in the Death Note, so I want your name to be, like, erased or, like, whatever. So Watari's just gonna die anyway. And he does indeed die. And that's when L loses his goddamn mind. And then a chase ensues where they go to this Ferris wheel that they had back in the first part of the movie. It doesn't matter. They're on this Ferris wheel. For some reason, the Ferris wheel just, like, breaks down. I guess because she shot the, like, controls for it, but I don't see how shooting the controls would cause a malfunction of a Ferris wheel that badly, to the point where, once again, it's Final Destination falling apart and they both fall almost to their deaths. He does this 4D chess move before it all happens, though, and is like, actually, I wrote your name in the Death Note. And she's just like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? Why would you write my name in the Death Note? Like, how could you do this? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, girly, why are you upset? Like, you played the game and you lost. Like, why are you upset? Like, that part was, like, so weird to me. Like, whatever. They both start falling to their deaths. Conveniently, as they're falling, the page gets ripped out that has Light's name in it. She falls and dies in, like, a bed of flowers. He falls into the river, lake, whatever the hell, and doesn't die. Somebody pulls him out of the river. Oh, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But the page that had his name in it, conveniently burns up in the river. So he's in a coma now, and the killings keep happening. So now I guess the big head of the chief of police or whatever is mad at L because he's like, you chased down these teenagers and the killings are still happening, so obviously it wasn't him. Like, you gotta get out of here. Also, yeah, L was, like, driving a car and he was driving it like an insane person. Like, I know Fast and Furious gotta get to the pier real fast, but, like, he, like, slams into a bus, like, station, like, for no reason. Like, there was no reason to do it. Like, I don't understand why he, like, did that. And he's just, like, Fast and Furiousing down the road, putting other people's lives in danger. Like, he very well could have, like, easily killed somebody. Wildly mischaracterized in that point. Like, it was just annoying at this point. Like, just so he could do these cool stunts or, like, whatever, they, like, mischaracterized him, like, so badly. Yeah, but at this point, like, Elle figures out that it's some type of, like, fantasy mumble jumble nonsense, because Light tries to convince him right before he gets knocked out, of course, that, like, oh, actually, it's a demon, and it's the demon, and I gotta help you out, like, I'm trying to help you, and I don't know how to stop it, blah, blah, blah. Huh? What? Anyway, at the end, Elle is in a coma, Light is in a coma, and Elle is getting chewed out, whatever. He remembers something that Light says to go find a chemistry book that has a page of the Death Note in it. Also, anybody can write on the Death Note page, which is not how it works. Only the owner of the Death Note can write in the Death Note, so the fact that he's doing that is just like, that doesn't make no sense, love. That don't make no sense. So, anyway, Light's in a coma. He mysteriously wakes up from the coma as soon as the Death Note is placed on him. A mysterious force places the Death Note on him. His dad then comes in and is like, you did it, didn't you? And he's like, how'd you find out? Not even denying, he's just like, how'd you find out? And he pulls out a newspaper clipping of the dude that killed their mom and how he was the first victim that Light ever killed, and that's how his dad put two and two together. Guess. And then his dad asks, how'd you do it? And he's like, you really want to know? Again, mimicking the first beginning. And then he's like, he writes this grand master plan. The only smart thing in this movie, the only 4D chess move, the only interesting thing that he does, the only interesting use of this Death Note. And the whole thing is, like, in the show, like, you could do this at any point. You can control a person for 23 days in the show to just do whatever. In the movie, it's, like, only 72 hours, actually 48 hours, 2 days. But, like, this is the only time that they do something, like, interesting to that level. Like, and it, like, pisses me off because it's like, why are we now getting this level of like big brain from him? Did the coma like shake his brain and now he's like super smart again? Because the only time we get him being smart is at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie. During this whole movie, whenever Mia is involved, which is another trait of like the manic pixie dream girl, by the way, is that like the manic pixie dream girl is so bad for the main character that she like literally makes him dumber, or that by the end of it, when she is no longer in the picture because she was always the bad person, the main character suddenly like so much stronger and wiser and better now, and actually she was the villain all along, even in like romantic settings where that person really shouldn't have been the villain. I digress. He starts to detail how he wrote two random like weird like criminals like names down to basically drag him out of the water for another one of them to go pick up the death note to do the killings while he's in this coma, and then bring all the stuff back to him so that he would live, and that also so he wouldn't be made out to be Kira. And that's how the movie ends. And he basically goes on this little speech about how, oh, I just thought if I did the right thing and killed all the criminals that we'd be the good guys. But I guess life isn't always black and white, which is something they say like 3 times in this movie, really driving home the point. It's not always black and white, guys. Who knew? But yeah, that's how the movie ends. Oh, Elle for like 2 seconds like grabs a pen and is about to write Light Turner, not Light Yagami, Light Turner in this movie's name down on the death note, and then he doesn't because that would be so out of character, and then he laughs and has like a maniacal laugh moment, and then Light is like, man, what now? And then the movie ends, obviously setting up a sequel that will literally never come. But like at no point do we get to see Light's dad's reaction to this, which I feel like is very important, especially considering that he does not like Kira, he does not stand by him like at all, but now that he knows that it's his son, it would be very interesting to see like how it would happen if he knew that that was his son. Now, we didn't even get to see him get mad at Elle for, you know, in implicating his son or like whatever, and then like it not being him, but then I guess maybe he already knew it was him by the end of that. But it's weird. It's weird. It's left really ambiguous, I guess, for like another movie or whatever, and obviously that did not happen. And you know what? As a movie itself, it just does not work. I really tried to come into this as like just a fresh movie watcher. I hadn't watched Death Note in a very long time, so I'm like, I'll come into this and pretend that I don't know what anything is about Death Note. And obviously it's really hard to do because I love Death Note a lot. It's one of my favorite animes. Even then, it was still really hard, even as a movie, to like sit down and enjoy it. And I think it's because of this Riverdale manic pixie dream girl thing. I think a lot of elements could have worked here. Like I said, Light's motivations could have worked. Elle could have worked if they didn't just wildly mischaracterize him at the end there. This all could have worked, especially in a show format. It was really only Mia's character. If she had more depth to her, it would be interesting. And if it was built up over the course of a season, I could see that twist actually being interesting. The whole thing about like literally demonizing ryuk, the demon, funnily enough, just like doesn't work. And like for a person who doesn't know who ryuk is, sure, but for people who know the show coming into this, it's like, why are we making ryuk out to be the bad guy? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And then of course just the plot of the movie itself like is missing a lot of stuff that you have to, as a person who watched the show, fill in the gaps yourself. And so if I, as a person who pretending I didn't watch the show, goes into this movie, I feel like you're going to be left with a lot of questions that could only be answered if you watch the show, and then you'd be like, actually that's stupid now that I know the context from the show. So anyway, that's that on that. Oh, and there's like a random ballerina at the end of the movie, like just really at the end, like to drive home the spookiness factor, I guess. It's just like a random ballerina. I don't know. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. This really just made me want to rewatch Death Note again and like go do a whole video essay on Misa because I love her. And I feel like nobody really talks about her outside of her amazing fashion sense, which of course she has, but I feel like there's so much more to her as a character that I feel like, especially like looking back on it now, especially as like a feminine presence in the show, one of the only feminine presence in the show, I feel like it's like extremely important. So maybe I'll do that. Let me know if you guys would want to see that. Yeah, thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you did, you are a real one. Let me know down below if you've ever seen this movie and how you feel about it, and let me know down in the comments or on Twitter or TikTok, Instagram. Go follow me on all those places. Come talk to me about stuff, and I will see you in the next episode. Love and peace.